So we're on to the second week of the sort of drawing and painting people project. We've got Peter joining us today. So look, last week I did a more like a kind of head and shoulders torso demo, and this week I thought I'd try something with a full figure. I was thinking perhaps to use her. That's, I think it's not too complicated, but see. I brought in, again, similar sort of references. I brought some of my sketchbooks, so I do a lot of sketching with just people out when I'm out and about. So quite a lot of these are like tube trains. For me, this is like really a warm-up. When I go painting, I just do a little bit of drawing beforehand. It just helps me to get my eye in. And I like having people in my paintings if I can get people in my paintings, so it's a good practice for trying to sort of build my visual memory. I brought a few books in, different people that have inspired me and continue to inspire me. So you're welcome to look at any of these references. So this one's Edward Hopper, which I've always loved his work. And I think probably somebody who influenced me really. And I always like these sort of subjects where you've got people doing something or people in places. So he's definitely one of my influences. And this chap, I came across this is Bill Jacquelin's work. So he's a sort of contemporary artist, he's a Royal Academician. He's English, but he lives in America. And he does a lot of these kind of urban scenes. So I got quite keen on his work a few years ago. And another chap that I'm really keen on is Rob Poynton, who's a fantastic artist. He lives up in the Midlands. And again, a lot of his work has got people in. It's not all of these, but often he'll have people in, and a lot of them are people doing things, sort of action type subjects, things like that, sort of sheep shearing. And he does a lot of his work from, I think most of it is done from direct observation. So he'll sort of go and paint people doing things. So a little bit there if you want to have a few references. So the demos I've done this week, this was Tuesday's one. I just talk you through this one a little bit because it's a standing figure. And if you're drawing sort of people from the front, what I try to do to start with is it's quite a good idea perhaps to use like a pale colour or just draw lightly and just feel your way around the subject to start with. So with this chap, I started with like a line for the middle of his features here, then probably an eye line, sort of eye level, and then looking at the relationship between his eyes and the back of his ears, just kind of getting that angle in. So these are like thinking lines, they're like sort of guidelines. And then once you've got like head, you can also do a little bit of measuring, see how many times that would go in the whole figure. So you'd expect maybe a head plus about a 6, 5 or 7 or something like that. Once you've got a head in position, or got a rough idea where I want to work, I look for like the middle of the neck and perhaps the middle of the torso, which in this case is curving around this way as his head's at a different angle to his torso. So that I think is quite a good way of working. But if you're drawing a standing figure, that's why I've got this one up. I was thinking one thing to be aware of is like the relationship between the head and feet. So you're kind of scanning up and down and looking at where the head is in relation to the feet. You find that probably if that's the middle of the head, if you drop to a plumb line, the centre of gravity is quite often just sort of maybe over one of the feet, something like that. So that's something, if you're drawing, say if you're drawing somebody from life or from an image, just be aware of that. We did have 1 or 2 people that were toppling over this morning, so the legs, just be careful they don't drift off if you're working on a standing figure. As I say, so I'm not just doing exactly the same demo each time, I've got to tackle something else. If you want some just drawing paper, I've got just cartridge paper for drawing here if you want a bit of that. And what I'm thinking is maybe just a few kind of quick drawings. So yeah, can you see? Right. I'll try and draw from the side. So if I was drawing her, I'd probably start with her head about there. And then I could just check that's going to fit in, which I'm pretty sure it will. But I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, about three heads to get me down here, so that should be, that's, I'm perhaps going to end up about there. I like to start with, she's quite square on, so I can put a line through the middle of her head there. Her eye level will be about there. And I'm not too worried about features, perhaps just a couple of marks to suggest where her features would be. And then let's get roughly a head shape. And then looking like the middle of her neck, which in this case is pretty much in line with her face, the middle of her face. In some of these it won't be, it will be at a different angle, so just kind of look out for that. And then I'll look at almost like a line through the middle of the torso, like an imaginary line through the middle of the torso. So in this case, her shoulders are twisted, she heads forward, her shoulders are doing that. So her torso, the middle of the torso will kind of come round a bit like that. And if you want to draw on these photos, I don't mind, they're just cheap paper. It's just really for the purpose of drawing exercises. So if it helps to just draw some of these kind of relationships in, do just do that. Because it might help you to look for those things and see them. So that could be like line from the middle of the torso. Then I might look at where her shoulders are. That shoulder is slightly higher than this shoulder. So just put a guideline in there. Then really just start to sort of gradually flesh out the drawing. Now this arm is pretty straight, so the shoulder's there. I'm looking at, so from here to here, that I could drop a vertical there, and that's about where her arm is going to come to. Or hand will be sort of down here. And then really work my way down, really. That other arm, I can't really see much of her other arm there, that disappears from there. The chest would be about there, breast's about there, stomach's going to be here. And then, this is probably where I want to just perhaps do a bit of measuring. Just make sure I get the length of the torso right. So that's 1, 2, so about 2 and a bit heads. So I can go 1, 2. So I think about there would be where her leg will come out. Quite often it's worth perhaps just sketching in the general direction of almost like what I would imagine like a skeletal figure or a stick figure. So just getting the kind of general directions through the middle of the, imagine where her bones would be. And then I've got almost like an armature, I can then start to flesh that out and draw into it. Now if I need to move any of these, I can do it. It just gives me a general guide as to where to go to. So if I work into this a little bit now, so I could go to a darker tone, perhaps a darker blue or black. So this would be so eyes about there, there's a couple of marks to suggest that, and then shape of a face and a head. And this is, it's sort of intended as a quick kind of drawing to establish the main shapes and the main proportions. When I used to do a lot of, I used to go to a lot of evening classes when I was younger, life drawing, and then I went to art school and did a lot of life drawing there. And often with life drawing classes, you'll be asked to do very quick drawings, sort of maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So just establishing the basic shapes, the basic proportions, directions. So I've got that on there. So I can, once I've got this guideline, I can start to see the shapes there. But I'm also tempted to draw a little bit further into here and just get the. So I've got a collection of photos here in the Groovy folder where I just really scanned a lot of these or picked a lot of these out of Pinterest because they're people with not many clothes on. You can see their shapes, and that's the best way to describe it. So we're not trying to imagine the body under the very baggy clothes. So a bit of breast and chest there. Look a little bit down this side. And her arms come here. So this line will just help me to, obviously her arm is not completely straight. There are very subtle shapes of muscles here. And her wrist comes down to about there, pelvic point about there. And then when it comes to drawing hands, maybe just draw a shape around the hand so the fingers are splayed out a little bit. So this shape a little bit like that to start with. And then I can then work into that a little bit. And the thumb will be there. And then just trying to get this shape here. Another thing that I've not mentioned that's worth looking for is, so far I've just talked about her shape, but we've also got all these shapes around her. So if it helps, you could try and look for what they call the negative spaces. So if I just drew, say, a vertical line there, and look at that, then this bit of space, this shape around her, if I'm looking at that shape, it helps me to get her shape. And I always found this when I used to teach light drawing, I used to find this idea really useful, particularly when I was looking at students' work and just trying to sort of establish exactly where proportions might be slightly out. So if I'd look for these sort of shapes, and if something's slightly out, so I need to get it comes out here a little bit, and then thigh shape, something like that. And as I say, if there are some of these, like this one I did this morning, there are very definite kind of negative shapes you could look at, such as there or in here. That's not quite so easy in this one, but there are little bits of shape, little bits of space that will help you to get the overall shape. So the foot is tucked under there, and same on this side. That's coming up here. Bring her thigh out to there. Like that. And again, I could check things like the length of her legs against her head. That's nearly 2. I think that's about right, maybe a tiny bit more. That little bit there doesn't help. Just trying to imagine where that would be, just draw over that. And then that will curve back here, a bit closer in. And there. And her other arm is just in there somewhere. And again, I can just check, see if there's anything that I can latch onto. That's kind of the process that I go through, the way I think about things. I mean, with these very quick drawings that I do of people, most of mine are just very quick line drawings now, but this, because I've done lots of this sort of drawing, helps kind of establish it in my mind. I'm always looking for those sort of relationships, sort of where something might line up, something up here might line up with something down here. So although you don't necessarily need to put a great deal of detail into features, I definitely think it's worth, well, just at least having something a bit like that, just so that you can then sort of just see where that might line up with something else. Any questions? Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that help? Okay, so yeah, if you want to have a go at any of these, got loads of paper, got various photographs, got plenty of these pastel pencils. So if you want to borrow any of these kind of pencils, rather than choose these, or just even just want a light one, and then go darker. Thank you.